You're listening to the Old Tube Radio Network.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, for music and the latest news from home and from afar, the station for you is
OTR, Old Tube Radio.
the station for you is
OTR.
We hope the station for you is the Old Tube Radio Network, OTR. In our more than 30th year here on the air, 27085, we are in Central California, but we beacon everywhere else thanks to oldtuberadio.net. We will be talking with and hopefully finding out more about those glow-in-the-dark tube radios from 1958 to 1968. Our radio collectors are connecting the coax to the glowing radios, and we'll find out more as they check in. OTR is listening.
Number 7. 45.
All right, we have a few ready to go. The tubes must be warmed up already. Paul, take a seat up in the green room. Grab some lemonade or iced tea. What we have tonight is this over here. I'm trying this out. It is the Martinelli's. It's, what is it, pomegranate and apple. And it is, I don't know. It's a little bit strange. So grab some water if you want. We'll be right with you. But first, let's head over to Mr. Ed, SWL7. And he is in front of something. We will find out what it is. Hello, radio.
And hello, Dennis, and all the SWLs out there listening. This is the Robin T123. No B with the winking and blinking eye, which is definitely winking and blinking, telling me that it's doing something.
It's doing something. It sounds good. You fooled me. I was thinking, what radio is that? Because it wasn't doing its what we call Frankenstein growl. Now, I may have jinxed it by saying that, but it's got some great audio, as it always does, and as the Robins do. So let's pop up a shot at oldtuberadio.net and on the YouTube video, and you will supply the audio that goes with this, with it rather. And we're showing the magic iTube right there. And as Ed is talking, he will see that bounce around. Go ahead.
There you go. It definitely does the... there we go. Back to Frankenstein. Now that you mentioned it, I think I can see the needle doing its weird thing there. Anyway, yep, just like that one, only this one has a D104 attached instead of the Robin mic.
Okay, yes, Frankenstein has arrived. But it is in the background. We hear your audio. Not sure what that is, but it sounds... It makes the radio sound very fierce. And as the crossband says, it's alive.
There you go. Well, when Halloween comes around, I've got the appropriate radio.
It's 11 tubes and 2 transistors. Can run 12-volt DC if you've got the proper cable. I think we have had some check-ins on the Robin T123, the 123B from mobile before. It's kind of not mobile check-in weather, but it does happen. More information on the SAMS PhotoFax 35, page 96. And the audio right here. Give us another transmission. Thanks for starting us off tonight on the Robin T123. It's sounding good. Back to you.
Oh, well, thank you, Dennis, and always a pleasure to bring the two radios in and also to hear them out there. And in fact, with that, I'll be quiet and listen for some more and bring some more in too also.
All right. We hope to grab quite a... We did pretty good last week. I think the cooler weather's bringing people indoors. Let me get the microphone set up. I'm using the Heil PR40 tonight. And who is standing by? Mr. Paul, SWL 45 up in North Fork, where I'm not sure, it's not cold enough to be snowing, that's for sure. You might have got a little sprinkling or whatever in the past couple of days, but you are sounding good. Hello, Paul.
Yeah, okay, Dennis. We're checking my General Radio telephone, BB-30, business band radio.
All right, from General Radio Telephone, and one of the rare ones, I think we were featuring this. I had featured this picture that we'll be putting up here in just a moment during the week at some point, because the radio is just so cool looking and very rare. There it is. We'll pop it up. The BB-30, which was, I think, business band So how do you get a business band radio here on Channel 11? Over.
Hey, you gotta do a little squishing crystals to fit it up down there. It's not that far below or above it, whatever you want to say on this thing. So you can reach it with crystals. And then you get a good man like Harvey or Bill to tune it up for you. And I try sometimes myself. Then it'll work out pretty well. That's a two-channel radio. This right here is a two-channel radio. The first one's come out was a single-channel radio. I think that says on the right up, but yeah. And it's very simple. I wish a business band radio should be simple. It's got a squelch on the right-hand side, radio, bullhorn, flip switch, and then next to that, you have the two-channel on the other side of the microphone cable. We just change from one channel to the next channel. Then the volume control, it's got a yellow light on that just tells you when the radio is on. Then it's got a real neat meter up on top, which is the modulation and also receives and everything like that. Other than that, it's just really a plain good mobile radio. Back to you guys.
Sounds really good. Has the nice general radio telephone audio. I'm just looking at some info here. So that sort of goes into the super like MC8, MC9 series because it's running an ECL L800 tube. This came out in 1965, so I'm thinking that they actually had this radio, or the tube wasn't in their MC series at that time, I don't think. Not until the MC8 or MC9. This was a business band radio, as you said, 9 tubes, and it had, rather than the 5 watts output, this would actually do 25 watts RF output, which was probably type accepted for the business band, which wasn't that far off. It was 27,420, which these days would be just above channel 40, but of course channel 40 didn't exist, so it was, another 200 kilohertz above the end of the band at that time, so it wasn't too far off. Probably didn't have to worry too much about retuning the radio. Keeping it simple, but I really like that real polished, I don't know if it's gold or bronze. That's the way it looks. It might be a different color from the way the photo is. And I'm noticing the rack handles either are larger or they stick out farther or something. There's something different on that end of things. Over.
No difference at all, Dennis. It's the same thing, exactly. The only thing this one doesn't have the mobile bracket on the thing. I have one that, of course, fits another one because it'll fit on here. But it's got the screw holes in the thing and everything. But I'll tell you what, you mount it on one of these plastic dashes today, it'll pull a hole right through. It's heavy radio. It's really well built like it's always. For a mobile too, when you look it up, the VS has more strength as far as it bangs around. The VS10 was the other mobile they thought with. I don't know why they went to this big radio set, maybe just for the wattage. Back to you.
Well, it's got to look like a business band radio, and it does for sure. And I do see that it's noting that it can run 12-volt DC. So, yeah, back in the days of the metal dashes or the big transmission humps on the floor, it might work quite good. Really good audio, good signal as well. I just want to let our SWLs know that Paul is he's not in town here. He's a good 35, 40 miles away. So we are doing pretty good between us with that radio, and my antenna isn't all that high off the ground. It's called the BB30 from General Radio Telephone. There's probably not too many of them around, and my guess it was with the extra wattage out of the box, it was a radio that a lot of people wanted to have, but a few did. Give us another transmission before you go. Thanks for Radio 2, Paul.
Yeah, okay. I didn't just tell you what microphone I run all this thing. I run an M+2U microphone thing by Turner. This originally came out with a ceramic microphone built by Turner also, but not an amplified like this one is. Of course, I didn't have the original microphone, so this one has. The radio likes this microphone anyway, so I'll leave it on. Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah, it does. It sounds loud and it's really clear. Good tone quality, sounding good. The Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark. Are the jingle singers around? I think they're acting like they want to tell everybody about the favorite place to be on Saturdays.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you, wherever you are. Your favorite spot on the dial by far is known to you as
OTR, The Old Tube Radio Network.
The station for you is
OTR.
Number 7.
Hello, Ed. At your favorite place to be on a Saturday night, especially if you are in front of the glow-in-the-dark radios. And it sounds like you are. Give us a transmission. Tell us all about it.
That I are. Number 7 on the tram, TR27 Echo. 23-channel transmit and receive with the big S-meter and a 5x7 speaker. In fact, nothing about this radio is small.
Which probably makes it a joy to work on if you are a tech. You can get in there and see all the parts you need to see and grab the tubes and do all that. Although the trams were built pretty good. Probably don't need a lot of work on that. Nice thing about tubes, and a transistor is working perfectly, and then in the flash of a second, it's not working perfectly. A tube will sort of give you a little heads up that it may be having a problem. So you can get in there at your leisure and say, okay, let's see what's going on here. So that's one of the pluses of the tube radios. If you're watching the video, you are now taking a look at a Tram TR27E, and I believe it is. We have determined because of the extra little switch there that is the very tram that Ed is speaking on, which you will hear when he takes another transmission like this.
As a matter of fact, yes, that is the very radio. There's no doubt about it. The little switch there, which was an add-on. Someone that had this radio had channel 1 with another little gizmo in there to where it could go down below 1. They were somewhere below the band there. But other than that, everything else is still stock. And yeah, the radio operator, like you say, with a large radio like this, right on the top right-hand corner up there, there's a little plate with 2 screws. You pop that off and all your crystals are right there.
Conveniently located for your crystal convenience. Not sure what size crystals they use. There was an FT243, which was sort of the large crystal. I'd be surprised if it was that one, but it might be if you had to stuff 23 of them in there. They were what, $5 a piece back then? Or was it $5 a set? And it depended on your radio, whether it was multiplying frequencies and what frequency you put in. They used to have a little Hallicrafters walkie-talkie, used little tiny crystals, and they were, I think the transmit was right on, like 27085, but the receive was 455 off, so it was a 26 or something. You could flop them around and get on a secret channel that way. Anyway, the big trams, like the Titan and the Titan II and the TR series, the whole 27 series, of which there was a C and an E and I don't know if there was just a plain 27. A lot of them there sounding good. Give us another transmission. And what was I going to ask you? There's 2 red buttons. There's the switch, the mystery switch, and then there's another one below the S meter. Is that a stock? So that's supposed to be there, right?
Oh yeah, that's the spot switch, because the variable receive, you do have, of course, locked crystals on your transmit, but it does have the variable receive.
Okay, and it allows you to, I guess, put a little signal into your transmit crystal or transmitter, so you will hear it on your receiver, or try to find it on your receiver, so you can match the two together, and you will be talking. you will be talking where you are transmitting, which is always a good thing. Sounding good. Our tram fans will appreciate that. I believe this is from 1963 when this came out, and I think what I'll do until our next radio pops up, we have an ad, I believe. So there it is. I'm going to pop that up. If you're at oldtuberadio.net, you will see the tram advertisement, I hope. It shows, I think it even tells you how to tune the radio up, which is pretty cool. Back to you, sir, for a transmission. Thanks for bringing the radio by.
Oh, there you go. Yep. Oh, yep. In fact, yeah, so you just popped that up there, and yes, I've seen a few different ones of the ads that they have, and yeah, they had all kinds of information how to work on your radio, do your own peaking and tweaking, and that. Now, of course, that ad shows a Turner-type microphone hooked to the radio, but this one has an Electro Voice 638 hooked up because it seemed to be a little bit clearer and cleaner than the Turner that I had on there previously.
That is a microphone that is used a lot on the Collins transmitters. I believe the impedance really is more well matched for a tube radio transmitter, so it's doing a good job and has a classic look for the tram or any old tube radio that you might want to try it on. Let me say hello to, I guess as we say in radio, wave a hand to SWL20, who is away from his radio room but has found his Universal Media NetWeb device and is saying hello to the radio operators and SWLs alike. We've got you, Harvey, and I'm going to officially check you in on the old Tube Radio Network. Thanks, Ed, and we are looking for radio number 4.
Break OTR.
Quickie.
Okay, the break OTR. I know who you are. Stand by, please. And the quickie, go ahead.
50 checking in.
SWL 50 from his secret location, Hyattop Mount Hyattop. Hello, Mark. Let me find the proper page, and we will put the X in the square. Over.
Good deal. Thank you.
All right, thanks for checking in. Now, let's go back over to our business and say hello to Chris.
And good evening time once again, Dennis. SWL 37 here would like to check in our citizens Little Foam, the helicopters model CV3A. This one here I'm using also with the original handheld carbon microphone. Over.
It's got the sound of an old tube radio. That's not to say that it sounds bad. It's to say it's got the classic audio, all sorts of audio amplifiers and limiters and things of that nature from 1962, 1963. This is how they did it, and this is how you get to do it when you sit in front of the tube radio and key the carbon microphonium. Over.
Yeah, and you know, it's actually working like it should.
It is. I can hear you. We'll let's see how well it's working. We'll do a frequency check. We haven't done one of those in a while on the Helicopter. So next transmission, we'll see where you're at.
Halloween, but hopefully that should be. Yeah, I'm thinking you probably got me in there by now, but it's high between somewhere close to it. Hopefully.
Yeah, the audio is a little low, so sometimes it's tricky to run the sideband, but I just zero beat, as those who are listening on the stream heard, the ew until we got down to 27.84.5. So about a little less than 500 cycles low, which is well within the FCC limits.
Well, that's all we can ask for.
All you can ask for with the infamous, or should I say now infamous, Helicopters CB3A, production time 1963. You might find them advertised in a late 1962 CB catalog if you've got one. Runs 12 volts DC if you've got the right cable. And interestingly enough, they did all this with just 7 tubes. There is a schematic available at oldtuberadio.com. A great little radio from a great company, Helicopters. Give us another transmission. Thanks for bringing it by.
All right, Dennis, I'll be back here this shortly here with another one. All right, I'm out.
All right, looking good. I think we also have an ad on this. Let me get the video back to the control room here. But if you're at oldtuberadio.net, let me see if I've got a picture like we did with the tram. Here it is. Okay, this would be. This is the advertisement that Helicopters put up in 1963, and it's from Popular Mechanics. And they try to sell to everybody. Every salesman, delivery truck, service station, photographer, newspaperman, detective, ambulance, boat, airplane, construction vehicle, repair shop, police department, hospital, doctor, lawyer, merchant, or chief should be equipped with a Hallercrafter's low-cost personal two-way radio. So they're looking for everybody on this market. And we are looking for radio number 5 in the old Tube Radio Network.
45.
And hello, Paul. I'm just tidying up my paperwork here on the old Tube Radio list. Yeah, we do analog, write everything down by hand and stuff these in a box somewhere. So someday we'll go back and somebody will find all these lists and say, "Wow, they checked in." Otherwise, how am I going to know when we check on our millionth radio? I get Bozo Control to count all these up. I think you've got, Paul, radio number 5. So over to you we go.
Yeah, well, your bookkeeping's all right. You can keep track of it. That's the main thing, Dennis. Anyway, I want to check in another General Radio telephone. This is manufactured the same year as the BB30 was, roughly in that range. It's a Super MC8.
Okay, General Radio Telephone Super MC8, and I would definitely agree with that because of the ECLL 800 tube. It really didn't start showing up until we got into the Super MC series. And let's see, I don't have a date on that, but I'm trying to think. It looks like the 8 doesn't use the ECLL 800. That may be, I think you know that, later maybe the 9 was the first one to do that, but it certainly has good audio, and the audio very similar to what we were hearing on the BB30. Back to you.
Well, that's good. This is stock mic, stock radio telephone mic, this ceramic Turner microphone. And it's got pretty good, I'll watch the near, it's swinging very nice. That's what I like to see it. It's a 9-tuber again. It's had the air control frequency of the thing, 23 channel, and it has a turret tune. That's new to it right there. It's and it's like the MC7. It's much like the MC7. It's just a real neat looking radio, and the start of the big boys coming on after this one. This radio here had 3 of the H6AL11 tubes in it. They're real reasonable tubes, more like nothing hardly at all to replace all the tubes of this radio. But boy, when you come into the MC9, then things change. Anyway, that's about the story on this one. Back to you, Dennis.
Okay, I was just looking at the tube complements. You're right, the 6AL11 on the master oscillator, on the modulation amp, and on the output amplifier. So one of those got changed to the ECL 800 on the Super MC9. The original price of this is just under $200 with 9 tubes. And it had the 24th channel that a lot of the General Radio telephones did with the 26620 Civil Air Patrol. So I suppose you could pull that out if you wanted to in the day and put in another favorite frequency if you could get a crystal for something. Do it that way, or I didn't have a radio that could go out of band. I just wonder in the early days if there was a lot of activity on 26620, because if it was Civil Air Patrol, if they were actually using it, you probably would have gotten into some trouble had you wanted to just use that for a chit-chat channel. Is there such a thing as a chit-chat channel? The radio we're looking at on the video, by the way, or if you're looking at the picture, is from Paul's collection. I don't know if that's the one you're talking on. You might know, but it is the real deal. Back to you.
Yeah, most definitely. That's the radio I'm talking on. Real nice radio. It's kind of like the upgrade on the 9s and the 8s. The 8s kind of had that old feel or look of the thing, I would say. And the MC9 come along, and boy, they made everything big on it. Interesting. But General was changing. They changed a lot. They got good radios, too. Thanks, Dennis, for checking it in.
All right, well, there's a lot of competition. CB was catching on. It wasn't the big craze like it was in the early 70s, but we're talking about 65, 66, 67. and Brownings and Trams and Lafayettes and Allied and Radio Shack starting to come in, along with some others. So there was a lot of competition for the engineers there in beautiful downtown Burbank at General Radio Telephone to go in and peek and tweak and try and get the little extra mile out of their radio to keep the sales going. Radio number 5, thanks, Paul, the General Radio Telephone Super MC8. I'm looking at the time here, 9 o'clock. We have not set the clocks back here in California. That's supposed to officially happen at 2 in the morning or something, but you can do as you please. The jingle singers are saying we would like to do a top of the hour ID telling you about the friendly favorite place to be on a Saturday night.
How do you do? Ladies and gentlemen, greetings to you. Wherever you are, the friendliest station for you by far is known to all as
OTR, the Old Tube Radio Network.
the station for you is
OTR.
And I want to say hello to those watching in the video live. You may be watching the video weeks or months from now if it's still up, but those watching us live, DD21, of course. And hello again to EDA 396, waving a hand, the Ironmen out of Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm sure we hear some big signals coming out of Nashville here when the skip is running. So I know you guys got some big iron out that way. Speaking of big iron, we are looking for radio number 6 here on the Old Tube Radio Network.
And that must be a call for me.
Yeah, actually, there's a query, as they say. There's a question at oldtuberadio.net, and someone out there is just wondering where you got that Hallicrafters radio.
Where I get? I got this from this crazy guy. He used to live up here in the mountains over here. He was crazy. You know, he'd get up there and holler all over the world. And, you know, he acted like he was talking to Australia all the time, you know. He said he had a great big beam up there and everything. And then he moved down into the valley. And then nobody could hear him no more. So I don't know what happened to him. And then they say he moved somewhere else. And now they don't hear him at all. So, you know, I think he was a figment of my imagination. I think he went by 360 Ray or something like that.
That could be. We're just trying to set the record straight, if indeed we are making a record. Speaking about making a record, you could be the record for number 6 radio tonight.
I guess I could. I want to check in this radio here. It's gold. It's got lavender in it. It's got aluminum on it. It got blinking lights, a big knob, and then it's got 6 little knobs and plus a little one in the back hidden. But this here is my Courier Royale 23 channel tuber glows in the dark with the amplified D104 lollipop. Over.
Okay, when we say it's got a big knob, that describes quite a few radios. But when you start taking it down to the colors and the lights and all the knobs, and I can get a picture of that Courier Royale, which we're doing right now, so you can match it up with some of the great audio that happens from that Courier. Over.
Well, hey, it's not giving me no trouble tonight, so that's good.
All right, well, it usually behaves, kind of, doesn't it?
Yeah, usually, but, you know, every once in a while I get weak on the trigger and it don't want to keep, or I'll be talking and all of a sudden the audio just goes away because I got little fingers and didn't want to squeeze the microphone tight enough.
All right, well, the audio is good tonight, no problem. Probably the last in the tube offerings from Courier, I think, but this was the top of the line. A lot of people cite this as their favorite radio, and I can see why. Maybe one is not enough for a Courier fan. Give us another transmission on the Courier Royale. It's doing a good job here in 2017.
And you know, the guy I was talking to you about that Hallicrafters, I think he left this one here too.
All right. Well, those are the kind of friends you want to have. The kind that have a lot of radios and then forget where they put them.
Yeah, but he should have left his beam here.
He should have left what?
His beam, that 3-element beam that he had, or whatever, stacked threes or whatever. He had a menage a trois or whatever up there. I don't know.
All right. Well, maybe you're lucky that he didn't leave some of that. But what he did leave was pretty darn good, and at least we are benefiting here at the Old Tube Radio Network for sure.
And the tower too. Yeah, I'm going to try to get back here with another here in just a bit.
Number 7.
All right. We will be listening for you when you return. I also been trying to find out where my extraneous audio is coming from, but we will figure that out here shortly. In the meantime, we've got who was standing by? SWL7. Hello, Mr. Ed.
And hello, Dennis. Bringing you this time radio from E.F. Johnson, the Messenger 223.
All right, and I think I found my phantom audio here, so let me work on that so we won't drive people nuts with a replay when we don't need it. And we will also grab a video of the ever-popular E.F. Johnson, who not only made, of course, radios for the 11-meter band, but also made radios for the amateur band and is, from what I understand, still making radios for the business band. Over to you with the 223.
Oh, there you go. Nice, simple radio. Just the volume squelch channel selector. Place to plug the mic in, which you have to have plugged in order to hear anything. Having the switching relay in there, or electronic relay in there, and have a Silver Eagle D104 Lollipop type microphone attached.
Good audio. Johnsons are known for their great audio out of the box, and you get a good microphone or a nice microphone that suits your voice, you will do quite well with the Messenger. And from they had a good run on this, 1968, 69, 69 to 1972. So they were up against the big boys. That's when the big trams and the Mark IIs and Mark IIIs, all the Golden Eagles were coming out. But the price point for Johnson was pretty good. They were at about $200, which was in some cases a third or more or less of what you might pay for the other radios. So you might be able to outfit your mobile and your base and still have some money left over if you went with E.F. Johnson. A great style, nice and clean, and even better, it sounds great. Give us another transmission on Radio 7.
Oh, thank you much. Yeah, and for a smaller radio, pretty simple. It also has a very nice receiver, so it compares with the Tram and the Golden Eagle from Browning. So, yeah, you can't really go wrong with a nice, simple little radio.
And Sears and Roebuck liked them so much, they had Johnson make up a chassis for them anyway. It was basically the 223, and then Sears was able to put their SR logo, and it might have said Sears on the top. I'll have to find a picture. They're kind of rare, but if anybody has a late 60s Sears catalog, or you can get one, look in their CB section. They had stacked twos and antennas, and you will find a radio that looks very similar to this that Sears sold out of their catalog. As did, I guess, Montgomery Ward's did something, and Bernstein Appleby. They had other manufacturers allow them to put their names on the radio and sell them out of the catalogs, because CB was a happening thing at that time. One more transmission before you go. The radio is the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223, very popular. There are still a lot of them around today, and typically you can find them for a fairly decent price. Back to you.
Oh, yeah. If you look around for a little while, you can definitely find one for a nice price. And like I say, you really can't go wrong. They're a good receiver, and everyone I've heard so far seems to talk pretty darn well. Well, Johnson, yeah, you got to suspect that, like you say, they had definite radio experience. And with that one, I'll let you pick up somebody else, and I'll get my Eagle back on board in a moment.
All right, you are listening to the Old Tube Radio Network, real radios glowing in the dark. We are here on the air, over the air, I should say, at 27085 in the Central Valley of California. Everywhere else, you can hear us if you are listening in at oldtuberadio.net or perhaps watching the Google YouTube live. I'll call it live. It's live video, at least right now. Might not be live when you're watching it, but we do this every Saturday evening where we hang out and try and recreate the sound, the channel that might have existed when these radios were brand new in 1965 or 1959 or 1973. Bring back a little bit of that feel and also give people who may not have had a chance to participate in the tube radio days a little sound of what it might be like. Also, our collectors do a good job of bringing us the best, or maybe not the best, but at least the best they can do out of their collections, and let us hear some of the popular and not so popular radios. It's kind of fun, and that's why we've been doing it for over 30 years. We are looking for radio number 8.
Hey, can I be number 8, that other person that Ed said there might for another person?
You could be number 8 if indeed you have an old tube radio, over.
Well, it glows at night. It gets warm, and it's pretty, so I would like to check this one in. Anybody out there today?
All right, go ahead and check it in, over.
I think I heard someone out there also. But anyway, this is SWL 37. This time here, Dennis, we want to check in the Pretty Blue radio here. This is the G PowerMate by Gem Marine Products. 23-channel tubular glows in the dark. And we're running this here also with the amplified D104 Lollipop.
All right, now you mentioned that's a Pretty Blue radio. Was it always that way, or did you have a hand in changing the color?
Oh, no, this is the way it
came. That's the way it came to you, brand new out of the box.
Well, I don't know about brand new out of the box, but the way this is the way it came here.
All right, and the way it still is. We are showing a picture of the Gem Marine Products G PowerMate. It appears that it might actually be the one that is sitting on your table.
Yes, it is. Well, I was looking it up on Google one time, and they showed this in there also. And I think it was a blue one on the thing, so I think this is the original color.
That is probably the original color. I believe these are the infamous Panasonic early 1970 chassis that worked for like the Robin T123B and some of the other radios, so you can't go wrong. There may be some differences on the front panel, whether you have a meter switch or a range boost or something, but I think if you look on the inside, they're about the same. And of course, the outside, some of them may be yellow if it's a Robin, and some of them may be blue if it's a Gem Marine, and who knows. But this one, as you often say, is yours, and it's Radio 8 to give us a transmission.
Absolutely. And, some of them could be black, like a Chris radio. But anyway, all right, this is it, and I'm going to get out of here, and I'm going to try to get into another one. Get another one to work for me.
All right, that is a good thing. We are here for another 45 minutes, and there's plenty of room on the tube radio list. So the more you can get working, the more we will check in. We are standing by. I think there is a breaking station. We will be listening for you. This is the Old Tube Radio Network.
45.
That will work. Hello, Paul. SWL 45, perhaps on Radio 9, over.
Yes. This is my generator telephone, Super MC9. What I'll tell you about the thing is face difference on the front, stamp face grill instead of the old screen grill on the thing, and bigger letters and the whole shebang on the thing. And that's the picture of the radio I'm talking on right now. Yeah, anyway, back to you.
All right, and it has some nice mellow audio. I think that tube change actually gave it a little bit wider fidelity. We'll pop in a shot here of the Super MC9, and I suspect that is the first one. Yeah, they switched one of those 6AL11s out for a ECL L800. Nice and smooth audio on this one. Not sure if you're using the stock microphone that we're seeing in the picture, if you've done something different, but a good choice for Radio 9, the Super MC9, over.
No, it's a general radio telephone, CM2, right on the front. It's a radio telephone in front of my on that little window down the bottom. Yeah, this is when they went to the big tube, the ECL 800. And I'll tell you, it made a powerhouse out of the thing. It's capable of doing a lot more than what I've got it running right here doing it. It's got the capability to do it. But this microphone is a General Radio telephone, CM2, like I said. It's a polished aluminum ceramic microphone. It's a heavy mic. You see the picture of the thing. Well, if you got in trouble with something, you use it for a club, you do some damage with the thing. It's really heavy. Anyway, that's about it. I was looking for the price on these things, and I got it somewhere, but I don't have it written down around. Do you happen to know that, Dennis?
I am looking. General Radio Telephone was pretty. They didn't like to raise the prices. It seems like all the pre-Super series were in the $159 range, and then they made that jump on the $199.50. And I would venture to guess that this radio was probably in that $200 price range. I'll have to check on if we've got a price for the 11s. It should be similar to that probably. So probably in the $200 price range, which again was not bad compared to others. Similar to what we were looking at with the E.F. Johnson. This radio is a little bit more, I call it utility. It has more of a radio professional look to it with the rack handles and all the gold or the silver, the chrome. They hadn't, in fact, General Radio Telephone always seemed to go for the performance rather than, getting a radio with a wood case or something like that. So they were more performance-oriented, and I think people who bought radios because they wanted to sound loud knew that pretty much. 10 tubes on this one. So there you go. Let's try another transmission before you go on the it's Radio 9, the Super MC9. Over.
Yeah, okay. This has a pass band tuning of the thing. It's really neat. It lays right underneath the meter there. It's like a VFO for each channel. You can tune it in and out and get the best signal on the thing. Very, very good idea on the thing. One of the big things besides the ECL 800, they were just about stopped making this, about the same all the way up to the 12. But then the 12, so they really had another change on the thing. But anyway, back to you, Dennis, and thanks for checking it in.
Sounding good here on the 4th day of November, 2017, the Old Tube Radio Network. We have been doing this for quite some time, and a lot of the people who are checking in have been checking in for quite a while. So 30 years ago when we're doing this, the radios were old then, but they're a lot older now, and they're still working well. We're glad to provide a forum to help people jump in the driver's seat at least once a week and get these things around the block. The nice thing about these, there's no smog check like an old car. Like the FCC does not come back and have you carry the radio into a field office to check it out to make sure it's got spectral purity or something like that. So we're glad to have them here. We are looking for radio number 10. Are the Jingle Singers ready for a little bit of Jingle Singer fun? Yes, they are. Let's see what they've got for us.
You're listening in the latest style at
27.085 megahertz.
dial, that's
Channel 11, Old Tube Radio,
in wonderful.
Fresno, California.
This is the Old Tube Radio Network looking for Radio 10.
37 here.
And we just might have our double-digit radio. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Dennis. And I was going to say something, I forgot what it was, so I ain't going to worry about it. But anyway, this here, I'm checking in my Chris 23 Plus CB transceiver. This is with the original handheld stock microphone.
The Chris, as in KRIS?
Absolutely, 23 Plus.
Okay, I want to make that designation because I know there's a Chris at the microphone, and I have to put the operator and the radio in the right boxes here on my list. So let's bring up a picture of the Chris 23 Plus, and when we do that, we'll go back to you for the live audio.
Yeah, it's similar to the G PowerMate. The like same chassis and everything to me anyway. I could be wrong. Just the microphone plugs in a different spot. Actually, the microphone's in the middle where the G is on the power mate. That's where that microphone's down here. And where the microphone is on the G power mate is where my headphone plug is. So, but primarily the same thing. Switches are in the same area. Knobs are in the same area. Stuff like that, except for the blinking light is right in the center.
Yes, I believe you are correct. That is the AM plate modulated. I call it the Panasonic chassis, but it was one of the import radios made in Japan. The 11 tubes, and it appears if you need an operator's manual or want to find out more about that, you can go to ultrabradio.com. And under the Chris 23 Plus, there may be a way to download or at least take a look at the operator's manual for that. Not that you need it because you are working it just fine. Over.
Well, I hope I am. It's doing what it's supposed to on this end anyway. Look at the meters are all doing what they're supposed to be doing. This is swinging that, and that's swinging that, and that one's swinging that. So I see 3 meters all going to the right, so that must be right.
If it's going to the right, it must be right. 10 dB over S9 on the signal, and a really good audio, which I might mention for the stations who check in that would like to hear how their radio sounds, or for those of you who may just want to rehear some of the show, we have archives available at oldtuberadio.net. You can click on the archive button. The OTR magnetophone will load all those little small 3-inch reel-to-reel tapes, and once it does, it will give you a display containing the date and whether it's an SWL or a tube radio check-in. And when you click on that, your media web player of your choice will load everything up, and you'll be able to search through that and listen for your favorite radio, or maybe your radio as it checked in, to hear how it sounded if you wanted to do some microphone testing or whatever you need to do. Thank you, Chris, for Radio 10. And who's next? Radio 11.
How about number 7? Hello, Chris.
All right, that was a double. I have Mr. Ed, and who was the other station? Oh, maybe just signing off. All right, let's go with SWL7. Hello, Mr. Ed, and whatever the mystery radio is for 11.
Well, I guess you could probably figure out what manufacturer made this radio just by the way it keyed up. But this is the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB with the Browning Laboratories Banana mic.
Okay, I think I was pretty sure it was the real deal. I remember back in the day there was the way you could make your radio sound like an Eagle, although it typically didn't. I mean, the radio didn't sound like an Eagle. You could make your key up sound like an Eagle by having another radio on and making some feedback. The other trick, and some of you might remember this, and it had a different sound. It had a twang sound. It wasn't quite a ping, where they would somehow fashion, and I'll call it a bobby pin or a paper clip. I think it was a bobby pin, where they would put it in the key bar of the D104. So when you keyed that, it would flip the pin and make kind of a twang sound. I don't know if you remember that one, but if you want the real deal and the real thing, you really had to lay down the cash for the Browning, well, I'll call it the Golden Eagle, but any of the Browning series, because I believe they all did it. Back to you.
Oh, thank you, Meister. Yeah, the very first Browning I ever saw was one of those ones that the kids could look at but not touch. Always wanted to grab that big lollipop microphone but never had the chance. Now, of course, I have my own. And I'm actually starting to like this little banana mic more all the time I use it.
Well, if you like to orchestrate the ping, for sure it's a better way to go. It's just easier to move around. And they were pretty smart on that microphone, unlike, say, a Turner Plus 2 desk mic or even the D104 style that we're showing here, that when you lift up the microphone, the bass comes with it. The banana-style microphone sits in the cup, sits in the holder, so you have a lot less weight when you bring that microphone up to talk, right?
Exactly. It's really like having a little hand mic and a desk mic all in one configuration, and boy, it definitely has some pickup because I can see it slamming the modulation meter to the side.
Yeah, it has more audio gain, and they also have it EQ'd a little different. It brings a different tone in the radio. It has a lot more mid-range. And the Browning radios already roll off a lot of the low-frequency bass below 200 hertz. And I think with the Banana microphone, they do even more with and add a mid-range punch. So it gives you some punchy audio for working through Skipland, no doubt. 1972 is when the Browning Mark III SSB went into production, and I believe they just kept making them until the FCC said it was okay for 40 channels, and then they could only modify that radio so much, and then I think the Mark IV came out. Price for this probably started around in the mid-600s. By the time they wound up going to something different, it was probably well up above $700. And I'm thinking they catch at least that much today, especially if they've been through Barkett's or some peek and tweak shop that knows what they're doing. You can get them for less than that if you can find one. If you're lucky enough to find one, as you have yourself. Back to you.
Well, there you go. Definitely lucky to find this one. In fact, it was another one of the old tube radio check-in guys. He was a dirt track racer. I can't remember his handle now or his number, but when he moved away, he had to get rid of a few things, and of course I got to pick up the radio and have been loving it ever since.
Indeed. All right, well, thanks for bringing it by. I'm going to take just a moment here because I found some information about Browning. Early days. I mean, this is before there was 11-meter Class D. This is from, it's a magazine called Overdrive. This was written in 1975. Let me just start the first part of it. I won't do the whole thing, or maybe we'll stretch it out through the rest of the program here. By the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee sits not the famous Indian Hiawatha, but the second oldest radio manufacturer in the United States, Browning Laboratories Incorporated. Overdrive, that's the magazine article that we're reading here, recently paid a visit to the Browning plant in Laconia, New Hampshire to inspect the plant and interview Gardner G. Green, Jr., Browning's president. Concurrent with this tour, we ran through a check of the Browning line of transceivers. Our conclusion, by using common sense and good old Yankee pride and craftsmanship and putting quality ahead of price consideration, Browning produces one of the best lines of CB equipment available anywhere to truckers. I don't know, do a lot of people have a Browning Mark IIIs in their trucks? But that was the advertisement part. Browning was founded in 1922 in Boston by Dr. Glenn Browning as the Browning-Drake Corporation. Some of you may have heard that before, Browning-Drake. The company made many of the first tube-type home radio receivers using the trade name Browning-Drake. Only the National Radio Company of Melrose, Massachusetts, is older than Browning in the radio receiver field, and that's only by a few months. Dr. Browning was, in fact, one of the original pioneers of the whole American electronics industry and a personal friend of Dr. Lee DeForest, who was the inventor of the first vacuum tube, and Dr. General David Sarnoff, who founded the RCA empire. In 1937, the company was reorganized by Dr. Browning under the name Browning Laboratories, a name it still retains. Prior to World War II, Browning made electronic test equipment, and during the war years, they manufactured oscilloscopes and oscillosynchronoscopes, which at that time were a whole new field, I bet. After World War II, the military market dried up, and Browning, looking for a new field to go into, they chose the high-fidelity business. At that time, high-fidelity was a brand new word, but as they have consistently shown throughout their history, Browning was not afraid to try new roads. Thus, they became one of the pioneers of home high-fidelity FM and AM/FM tuners, and were the very first company to come up with the stereo receiver, long before any radio station was broadcasting stereo. Boy, that's going to be a hard sell when you don't have something to receive, but you've got the product. Long before any radio station was broadcasting in stereo, they were around with their receivers. Instead of the current practice of using two signals on one FM channel, in those days it was done by a station having both AM and FM capabilities, transmitting a program simultaneously over both forms of modulation. I didn't know that. AM and FM was your stereo, and then you had to have a receiver that would pick up both of them. A special Browning receiver could receive both signals and produce what was then called binaural sound Truckers who go back to the days of Ward, LaFrance, and Brown may remember this term. All right, I'll stop reading there. We might continue on with a little bit as we get closer to the Brownings of 11-meter fame. But there you go, a company that goes back to 1922.
And break OTR.
The break OTR. I am ready to stop talking and take your break.
Okay, here we go. That was interesting, though, I have to admit. But anyway, SWL 37 here once again with my final radio for the evening. This is my general radio telephone, the Super MC11A 24-channel version of this. Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, 24 channel on this. But we are also running this here just on channel 11. And it's got the little signia with the little man in a wheelchair. And we are running this here with the handheld stock microphone. Over.
And as always, doing a good job on the audio from the general radio telephone. Paul has been giving us the earlier general radio telephones. We're doing pretty good on the general radio tonight with the MC9 and before that the Super MC9, I should say, the Super MC8 and the BB30. And so this is not quite the last in the series of the Super. They did go to an MC12, but this is the one that probably, thanks to being type accepted, sold the most. 9 tubes, still using the ECLL800, and as everyone can hear, without an amplified microphone, sounding quite nice. Over.
Yes, it does. It's a loud radio for just a stock microphone. I've listened to the archives on it and everything, and it is definitely loud.
Oh, it is definitely loud. I listened to it too on the archives, and you are louder than I am through the control room microphone. And we're all running about the same level, so that's just the sheer brute force of general radio telephone, sort of perfecting from the Super MC8 and the MC9 to the MC11. I don't think there was an MC10. Something happened, or maybe there was another model that way. But we always go to the 11, and it is a good showcase for working on their, the guys at General Radio Telephone working on the kitchen table and peeking and tweaking things until they came up with this. And it's pretty much you think to yourself, what else can we do? How can we make this sound any better? And that's when you start maybe adding some devices on the front or more switches or meters or something like that. But they weren't, they put in what was necessary. The one thing about General Radio Telephone, they didn't add a lot of extra things that you didn't need. If they put something on the radio, like Paul was saying, like the little tuner under the S meter, it was there for a purpose and to make things work better rather than to just say that our radio has 12 knobs and the other guys only have 11. Speaking of 11, give us another transmission on the Super MC11A.
Yeah, that little knob under the meter on mine, it just does it for fine tuning to get that receiving just perfectly, which you sound perfect every time. So, but yeah, listen here, it was made to be loud. It's still loud. I've never added anything behind it, and it's talked to Washington and I don't know, probably some other places, I don't know, but I couldn't beat it with senior citizens discount at the thrift store, $17.50 out the door.
Wow. I mean, and that had tubes in it, right? You didn't have to put tubes in it.
No, it didn't do nothing to it.
Didn't do a thing except plug it in and make sure it gets checked in on the old tube radio network on a regular basis. Radio number 12, General Radio Telephone Super MC11A. It sounds good, Chris. Give us a transmission. Thanks for bringing it by.
Okay. I do have to say one thing. At one time, I did have a problem with it, and Harvey fixed it. It just wouldn't work there for a few days, and Harvey took it and put a couple things to it and said this is what it needed. He did it, and there we go. So I thank him for that one. But anyway, this is me, and I'm out, and this was my last radio, so I'm jumping over to solid state so I can save the tubes and listen to the rest of the show.
All right, good deal. We still have almost 30 minutes left to go for checking in radios or whatever we want to do, and Harvey might actually be listening us out there away from the radio room, but listening in as many do at oldtuberadio.net, waving a hand. Hello to our newest station in British Columbia. I hope you are enjoying our tube radios as they parade across the internet tonight. And also, it looks like we have X4000. Let me give a check in for X4000 out there in mysterious Brentwood tonight. I'm going to continue because I was starting to be quite interested in our Browning history class. And I wanted to, we talked about the early Browning from 1922. Let's move up to where we are at, and that would be 1958 Class D Citizens Radio Service, authorized by the FCC in September of that year. And the same month, Browning decided to start making CB equipment. First, they decided to put out a base station only, as they felt any communication system was only as good as its base station. They also opted to build a separate receiver and transmitter units, which was unusual at the time because most other stations were single transceiver type units. And although there were a few CB enthusiasts at that time, Browning had the faith in the potential of their market and decided to go for the high end of it with well-engineered, high-quality professional base stations. And I think such decisions have worked well as we get in a lot of transmitters and receivers from Browning from the early days, way in the early 60s, that are still running quite well. The first Browning base station was introduced in 1959. Since then, they have designed 10 more different models, the current one being the Golden Eagle Mark III. This article was written in 1975, so that was before the Mark IV came out. And it says, Browning builds all of its base stations from scratch at the Laconia plant. All production work from chassis stamping and drilling to final assembly is done by women. Okay. Not that Browning has been taken over by women's lib activists. Rather, the repetitive type of detailed work is the type of function that women do better. Okay. I am reading this. Send your comments to the overdrive. Women, it seems, have smaller hands, better manual dexterity, and the patience to do the same thing over and over again. Don't we do that here? Haven't we been doing this for 33 years? That takes a little bit of patience, doesn't it? Anyway, this is from 1975. Browning has had men on the production line, but they evidently became bored and moved on. Men and women handle all alignment and quality control work. So there you go. Thanks to the men and women of Browning Laboratories so that we can be on the air here in 2017. This is the Old Tube Radio Network.
Well, and again, too, as I read on a article somewhere a while back that the feedback, as what it would be called, that you get, a.k.a. the ping, was an actual oversight by the engineers, and they had said that they thought that it was pretty unique, and they went ahead and hung with it, which becomes its infamous pinger. But I don't know if you caught that in any of the articles, but I run across that looking up some stuff.
Yeah, this one hasn't mentioned that yet. Maybe they weren't, in 1975, they weren't allowed to give that that secret away. I don't know. But sometimes, little mistakes like that become part of the act, as it were. Comedy acts, the guy comes out and accidentally trips and does a little slapstick fall unintentionally and gets a big laugh, and it gets written into the show every night. So maybe that was the Browning thing. They got the ping, but it was just something different enough that everybody liked it. Let's see. Besides building separate transmitter and receiver units, which are rare today, Browning also hand wires them and still uses tubes instead of transistors. This results in a heavy unit, 47 pounds. The reasoning in this matter is that transmitters and printed circuit boards are fine when size and weight are a major factor, but these facts are not significant considerations in the base station use. They feel that most CB operators have or gain at least a limited knowledge of electronics and can trace down a problem to a wiring or a tube, and this cuts service costs and downtime significantly, probably giving Browning equipment a lower life of the unit maintenance cost than many base stations. Well, there's still a lot of them running around, and they seem to be able to be resurrected and fixed with not too many problems, that's for sure.
And then between Killer diehard shops like Bill's, Red Monkey Communication, and then this other guy, I can't think of his name, that you know who it is, that's got that website with all the trim and the Browning stock that he bought. That is another one that helps keep it going.
Yeah, that's who is it? Barkett. I'm not sure if that's the name, but that's the name of the company that gets a lot of airplay, as it were, for getting your radio fixed.
Yeah, here's the one that's got pretty much everything you need to get it on the air and keep it going. And then Barkett, yeah, that's him. I talked to him a while back and looking for replacement pieces, and he's got it all, man. Again, I thanked him, whether it mattered or not, I thanked him for picking up the stock and keeping it going, because otherwise, you know, who's to say that they wouldn't have said to hell with it, threw it in the trash. I had a friend that I worked with, I'd like to have choked him to death, but they were going through an estate of his dad's, and we were talking about radios one day, and I was talking about D104s and the big cabinet tube radios, and he said his old man was a collector of them and had a bunch of them, and they didn't think nothing of them, didn't want anything to do with them, and started tossing them all. And I told him, I said, dude, you just don't know how much money you threw in the garbage. But he said his dad was a collector and had all kinds of crap. When he passed away, I went ahead and it was on him to do with whatever, and he didn't care and didn't seem to have any interest and started chucking them all.
That is the old saying, or is it a cliche? One man's trash is another man's treasure. And that can be proven with quite a few things, for sure.
Yeah, it was sad. It was sad to hear that. I told him, I said, well, I guess it must be nice to not really need the money and not really care about the hobby. And I said there had been all kinds of people that had been wanting to buy them up. I said you could at least made money on them instead of tossing them in the garbage and paying for someone to get rid of them. So I said, that's enough. I don't need to hear any more. I said, it's not nothing I need to know about. So it's just one of those things, you know. It's a hobby that thanks to guys like you that keep this net flowing. I mean, because you had the gauntlet handed down to you, and you got a lot of heart, and it's well appreciated in more ways than one that you keep this going and you keep this broadcasting worldwide now, which I bet old Jimbo would not have believed this, but you know, it's another one that's just added to it.
All right, well, thanks for the good words there. And, of course, we couldn't be doing any of this if it wasn't for a lot of people taking time out of their Saturday evenings and family time to jump into the radio room once in a while and key up the radios and make sure they still work. And you know who has amazingly hung around all this time is the Jingle Singers. And if you give them donuts, they seem to not go away. So that's a good thing, and they'll prove it to us now.
What are the magic numbers?
27.085 megahertz, channel 11.
Are the magic letters?
OTR.
Right here in
Fresno, California.
Radio Magic
Old Tube Radio.
for you.
And still plenty of time to check in your radio or shortwave listener check-in here before we sign off in a little bit. Looking for Radio 13.
Basic break 1-1.
This is your basic break channel. Go ahead.
Hello, Dennis. 70 late check-in, please, sir.
Okay, not a problem. The 6L6 is still glowing, and I can still access without putting in a quarter. I think after 10 o'clock it starts charging me here, but I can get to the SWL70 banner. I can flip the switch, and it says that you are checked in. Over.
I appreciate that, Dennis. Thanks, man. Over.
All right, thanks for remembering the Saturday night place to be, the old Tube Radio Network, where we are waiting for those glow-in-the-dark radios.
Breaker OTR.
All right, and there's somebody who's got many radios all at the same time. Breaker OTR, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to check in an old tube radio.
You have come to the right spot, sir.
All right. As long as I can keep this thing keyed down, what we have here is a Gemtronics GTX 5000 40 channel CB transceiver.
Right, the good old Gemtronics GTX 5000. I have a photo, and unlike the G PowerMate that has got great colors to it, this one is sort of monochromatic, but I want to light it up here on the screen anyway to give people an idea of what you have. And it's the 40-channel, I guess, version of the import radio, but they do a good job. It's a really good circuit, and it does well. I'm not sure what you're doing to keep yours going. I know there's something special you have to do. I'm not sure if it involves clip leads, but your entry is Radio 13. Go ahead.
Okay, I can't see the screen at this time. My computer is off at the moment, but it is booting up. Yes, this is kind of I don't know, not too many frills radio. This is your basic volume channel, and squelch, and meter switch, and then the RX-TX lights, and then a CVPA switch. I want to remind people, and also remind you, Dennis, to check your messages on Facebook. I sent you a image to post on the OTR website. Instead of posting my radio, you can post the flyer for the Fresno Amateur Radio Club swap meet coming up this coming Saturday in Clovis, California.
Well, that's right. It is now November, so I'm thinking that is the 11th. It's not today, of course. It is next Saturday, and I'll have to get the information in Clovis. So where in Clovis might that be?
It's going to be a place called Lions Automotive, which is a business that was around for a while, and it closed down, but the building is still there, and the sign is still there, and it's located, it's near Gettysburg and Clovis Avenues. You just, you take Gettysburg, a couple of blocks to the east from Clovis Avenue, and then turn on that street, which I can't remember offhand. It's right over there in the area. It's kind of southeast of the intersection of Clovis and Gettysburg, kind of nearby the 84 Lumber place, down in that area there. But the flyer that I sent you has precise directions on how to get there, and the times and stuff like that.
Okay, I'll see if I can find that. Often I have trouble finding things on the Facebook page. Okay, I think I did. I think I found it. So there it is. All right, at oldtuberadio.net. Fresno Amateur Radio Club's annual ham radio swap meet, open to everyone. That means amateur radio operators and licensed amateur radio operators and non-licensed operators. And like Larry said, being held on November 11th, 2017, you will be able to arrive at 8 a.m., and admission is free. It is at Lyons Automotive at 2944 Phillip Avenue. So put that in your Google search if you're not familiar with Clovis, either Lion, L-I-O-N, Lion Automotive, or 2944 Phillip Avenue. Directions from Clovis Avenue: turn east onto Gettysburg, travel 2 blocks, turn south onto Phillip, proceed to the Lion Automotive item. There is available parking in the parking lot. Walk through the open gate to the swap meet. That is next Saturday, November 11th. In the city of Clovis, the Fresno Amateur Radio Club's annual ham radio swap meet, which has been going on in various forms for a long time. I have gotten many great items of interest at that. I think I've got my Gonset Communicator 3 with the magic eye long ago, and some pieces and parts for some of my amateur radio stations, and might get some tubes. Anyway, it's a good thing, and we will remind... I guess we have to remind everybody now, because when we talk here next week, it will be over.
That is correct. It will be over. And there's going to be free coffee and donuts in the morning, and free burgers and hot dogs towards the noon time. So yeah, there's no excuse not to show up. And bring your money, bring your cash, bring your checkbook, but we don't take American Express.
Okay. Does it say that there's going to be food? Okay, I guess so. Donations for food and refreshments are accepted, so there's probably something going on. I don't see that there's going to be any testing or anything of that nature. Talk in on 146-940. That's the club repeater. Oh, T-hunt contest. There's going to be a transmitter hunt and a prize going on, so bring your directional antennas or your clip leads to go into your HTs. So once again, the Fresno Amateur Radio Club's annual ham radio swap meet next Saturday, November 11th, beginning at 8 a.m. with the swap tables at Lion Automotive in Clovis. Thanks, Larry, for reminding me.
And thank you for posting it.
Okay, yeah, maybe we'll leave that up throughout the week. We still have 5 minutes or so if you'd like to check in a radio. Where are we at? Radio 14 is the next one. We'll have the Jingle Singers tell us a little bit more about such things, tube radio, and we'll be back for your check-ins in just a moment.
Let's do some spelling.
OTR. 27.085 megahertz. Channel 11, Old Tube Radio. Old Tube Radio.
How about a question?
Yeah, this is the question, and 27, we got you, KB6GFD. And to get Dwayne in there on the crossband over on page 2. And the question, go ahead, over.
I noticed that there's a spot here on the postings that says we'll be monitoring 14.48 3.5 tomorrow morning for the very bad day scenario. Do you know what that is?
Oh, yeah, the FCC and I think amateur radio are trying to do, and I'm going to ad-lib this, but I would like to find some text on it to do this properly. But what they're trying to do is create, have you seen those where they do emergency prepared services where they have people lying on the ground all with the fake injuries and stuff, and they want to test the local ambulances and services to see if there was 50 people lying on the ground from some bus disaster, there would be enough people to figure out what to do with them and where to put them and all of that. This is the radio version of that, so to speak. Let's say that we have, what do they call it, an EMP, electromotive force, that something happens in the air that that lights things up, that takes out all the power lines, or a electromotive force that takes out your internet, or stop. Yeah, Larry was saying something called like the apocalypse, but something that happens like that. Would it be possible to still function and still have communications if that happens? And it's sort of a scenario where we're going to say, okay, you don't have this, and you don't have power, and you don't have this, and this doesn't work, and all that doesn't work. How are you going to survive and communicate and do what you're supposed to do? Because in theory, it will take out the broadcast radio stations, and they'll be off the air, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's something like that. And there's probably more information about it. And I forgot they're doing it on a weird frequency, right? It's you said 14 something.
Yeah, that's what kind of got me. It was 483.5, which of course is outside of the 20-meter band. So I guess it's just for listening.
Probably just for listening. I don't know if it's Mars, like if that's a Mars frequency, and they've already got everybody set up saying, here's what you're going to be doing, or here's the areas where you're going to be, something like that. But I guess they have to grab something that's close, not type an amateur frequency where you have possibility of being jammed or people not understanding what's going on, but you still need to be within the, the ham band range to make it propagationally correct.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I was kind of wondering if it was something like that. I participated in that before. That was in part with the Department of Homeland Security and all that other stuff for that kind of scenario.
Yeah, I think this is the first one like that they're gonna try, where it's not people lying around, but it's actual equipment trying to figure out how that's going to happen.
Interesting. I'll have to take a listen.
And did you have a date for that? That's coming up, and I saw the post, and I can't remember where it was.
It just says tomorrow morning, so I guess tomorrow.
Well, there's there is so much going on.
Well, I'm definitely prepared for a zombie apocalypse.
That's right. Oh, hey, Dennis, did you check in for Proxy N135?
I did not check in. I know I did not check in. Let me check if I did the proxy item. Nor did I do a proxy item.
Well, I will announce to Proxy N135, please.
All right. Your announcement and the proxy check-ins are done.
Thank you.
All right, I'm still awake, and well, I can check in a gun if you're here for one.
I can do that. Let me go to the G section of the old Tube Radio Network, so that we can all be on the same Gonset page. And we'll go back to you. And I believe that's Michael there. And tell us about the Gonset. Over.
Well, I thought I would use, since we just had Halloween, I'd use one of my Magic Eye radios. The Gonset G11, this one, well, oh my God, I do not feel really warm and fuzzy about having to practically scream in this microphone on this radio to make the Magic Eye 2 work, but I'm doing it right now. It's a Gonset G11. I believe it's got 9 tubes, which would make it the smallest complement in my radio collection, but not the least of which, particularly the, oh gosh, is it the 675? I think it's the 675 Magic Eye 2, which is kind of like the Pac-Man looking tube. You're basically looking at the top of the tube instead of like a Gonset T123. You're looking at the top of the radio, and basically every time you scream into it, like I'm attempting to do now, the mouth of the tech is closed. But fun radio. I'm sure it's not putting out a lot of audio, but nonetheless, still fun to look at.
Yes, you definitely need to make that Magic iTube flash because the audio is a little bit low on that. So I imagine if you are seeing the movement, it is telling you true. We have a really, really great picture of the G11 at oldtuberadio.net and on the video, courtesy of SWL 135, showing the Magic iTube in a winking, blinking state, also showing some other illuminated light on the right-hand side of the radio. And there's not much to go wrong with that radio because there's just not much there, but it's working.
Yeah, you're right. Besides the Magic iTube, there's nothing. And I know the picture you're looking at. If I remember correctly, it does indeed have that really awesome, like a cat eye lamp to just indicate that you do have power running there. I did like that. I remember that from years ago. This does not have it. It's got practically nothing. I do know these radios came well, they should have come in 3 different flavors. There was a D11 3303, which this one is, which was designed to run off 110 AC. I guess you could have ordered it in a couple of different varieties. The 3304, which was designed to run off of 12 volts DC. And then, of course, there was a 3305, which was designed to run off of all the cars, I guess, that had 6-volt batteries. But this is the 110, so there it is. You got 110 volts and almost no watts going out.
Well, I'm not showing a lot of signal strength, but the audio isn't bad, considering I think you are using the stock microphone there, which is wired in. Not sure what would happen if you put some amplification in there. The poor little Magic iTube might not like you for that, but considering this was, I want to say it was one of Gonset's first radios that they did, so we're probably looking at 1958 or 1959 for this, so it's holding up pretty well.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to hear it hasn't decomposed any bit on the inside. Apparently, like a couple of my other radios have. I can definitely tell you, man, this sucker gets hot, and it's been forever since I've done a side-by-side comparison. But on the top of this radio, I thought it was kind of curious that I think on the top there were two screws, two holes drilled into the top of the cage. So you could have made some adjustments by removing a couple of tiny plugs. This radio, I couldn't remember if this radio had those plugs that covered those two adjusting holes. So I reached up there to see if it did, and lo and behold, you could probably put some really delicious waffles on the top of this radio, but no, I don't have those two adjusting holes on the top. Well, at least I have the holes. I have no awesome original plugs for that.
Okay, the picture we're showing shows the two. It's almost like rivets or something, filling up those two holes right between the word communicator. And there were various versions of this radio. I think they had a mobile, and it's one of the ones where you had to buy it as per the power you were going to do. There was 12 volt or 6 volt, and it had a special designation that way. And this is the early radio, because there is, at oldtuberadio.com, there's an advertisement from the QST of 1958, probably a late 1958, talking about the Citizens Communicator. So Gonset, who at that time, of course, was already making amateur radio gear. I've got one of their G76s, but that came out in the mid-'60s. But they were doing really interesting things similar to this size, where you could use your AM car radio and put this device in and listen to 10 meters and converters and items like that. So this was their start into the Class D service, and they were actually bold enough to put an ad in QST and say, hey, look what we're doing. So you will find more information. You can tell you have an early radio when you find more information about it in Sam's PhotoFax CB1. So from 1958 or 59 to 2017, it's doing pretty well.
Oh, good. You know, I do wish I had that PhotoFactor 1. I don't. I've got the one for almost every other radio I have, but not this one. I thought it was kind of curious. Harvey came over and we're kind of looking at this thing when I got it. And I guess it was kind of peculiar because I think if memory serves in that PhotoFax that you're talking about, in the upper left-hand corner on the front of the radio, I guess most of these things came with just like regular pilot lights or some sort of a modulating lamp that wasn't a magic eye tube. And I think in Sam, you know, it had a schematic for it. It was just like a regular incandescent bulb or something. So I guess it's kind of like, you know, Porsche. Porsche never built cars, well, in the 60s and 70s. They're always cheating around, especially the old 356s. They were always in constant state of development. So I guess it's kind of a weird roundabout way. This thing was too, with, you know, with, I guess the pilot, this regular incandescent bulb, you know, eventually moving into the magic eye tube. I do also have to say that I do know the, you know, you use the term rivet to describe these apparent decimals. It does have two rivets kind of on the front of the front face of the radio on both sides of the word communicator. But the two little holes on top of the radio, where you remove these little plugs, would actually be on top of the radio, not on the front. But there it is, and you were correct quite some time ago. You're definitely not going to be easily plugging in the amplified mic on this thing. It's hardwired in. It's a great mic. It fits the hand very well, and it's kind of the way that your thumb is situated with your fingers to move the switch. It actually feels quite comfortable, but yeah, you're not unless you're hitting with a soldering iron, you're not going to be changing mics on this radio very easily.
Well, a lot of the Johnson Viking radios were hardwired, and a lot of the Heath kits were hardwired. So the early ones, I think part of it is there wasn't this. All the manufacturers did not have, put in an amplified microphone. There weren't extra mics. You kind of bought the radio and it had the mic in it, and you weren't supposed to be fooling around modifying your radio with a different microphone. So why would you need a mic jack? Just one more thing for, something to fall out. You weren't supposed to be that technical. We don't have to worry about plugging stuff in here. So I don't know. I think they soon found out that the average citizen band radio operator was a little more astute and was going to be using this as a hobby thing, and they started creating things likewise. Anyway, it is a great piece of history, especially the Gonsets. There's always some interesting info about the stamped frequencies that are on the radio that don't kind of match the frequencies that were going on in the U.S. at the time, and some will say, well, that's a Canadian frequency. But again, when you're the first ones out the gate on something new, the rules may change or get modified, so you're kind of stuck with what you decided to do in 1958, assuming it might change in 1959. Did I write you down? You are Radio 14, by the way, if I didn't say so.
Oh, good. Well, 14's good. It's G11 as a 14th radio. Great. Well, thanks for letting me check it in. It's always fun. It's always a pleasure. Although, well, I guess it's not a pleasure screaming in this radio. It's kind of against my personality. But certainly it's fun looking at the magic eye tube on this thing, and it's great listening to everyone else. So thanks for letting me check it in.
All right, and thanks for bringing it by so that we could check it in. The Old Tube Radio Network. Any other stations wanting to check in before we sign out tonight? And I need to do some counting and amounting here, so if your radio's warming up, we'll take it here in the next minute or two.
And also wanted to thank one of the digital SWLs there for putting up the link to look at the bad day scenario there and get all the information on it. And I also have to agree with his comment that all the zombies are in Washington.
Yeah, we're maybe focusing our efforts in the wrong spot here. Okay, and thanks, Ray, for the link. Yeah, if anybody wants to take a look at the link, and this is from the ARRL, it is up at oldtuberadio.net. And I would say it, but it is too long. Just in short, the exercise is designed to improve readiness, build cooperation and public awareness, and better prepare to defend the nation. The event simulates a power outage scenario. And where was I reading? It's really hard to find some good information about this. What's happening is they're trying not to scare anybody, I guess, but they need to practice this. I mean, and again, it's like the ones where they have people, dressed up as shock victims, and there's fake blood and stuff like that. And if you were to drive up on that and not know what they were doing, it might be a little bit scary. So this is another thing. They're trying to not scare people into thinking that anything is happening, but they have to be prepared. So that is what's going on. And I guess it's a couple of days, today and tomorrow. And they've got some frequencies where they're testing things out. So I'm not sure what you would be able to hear on that, but it might be worth tuning in. All right. Any other items? And the jingle singers are saying, play the jingle. All right, here we go.
You're tuned to
OTR. Channel 11.
right here in
Fresno, California.
Stay with us
Old Tube Radio.
and be modern.
We always like to be as modern as possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, time now for the current OTR total.
The current and final totals at 15 after 10. And we are still on the air. The power is still here. Everything is wonderful. How would we do OTR? Or could we do OTR? Actually, believe it or not, the tube radios are way less susceptible to EMP than solid-state devices, and that's what they're talking about. Satellites and all this new technology is not good when it comes to EMPs. The tube radios, however, if you've got a tube radio with no transistors in it, this might be the only thing going. If something bad happens, the old tube radio network might be the only thing going here. So keep that in mind. Don't throw away those really old 1959 tube radios, because they probably don't have any transistors in them. All right, let's get out of here. We had 7 check-ins on page 1, 14 on page 2, 13 on page 3, and 14 on page 4 for a total of Can I read my own handwriting? A total of 48 tonight. And on the radios, we did pretty good. General radio telephones, as we got a nice little, I say mid-60s and on history from the MC8, Super MC8, MC9, MC11A, and of course the infamous BB30 business band radio. Checking in tonight. So good job on the general radio telephone. Starting off with the Robin T123, thanks to Mr. Ed. Then the first general radio telephone. This was their business band, BB30. Thanks, Paul, for that. Radio number 3, the Tram TR27E from SWL7. Then Chris came by with the Hallicrafters CB3A. The Courier... the General Radio Telephone Super MC8 was radio number 5. Thank you, Paul. Chris on his Courier Royale was radio 5. Radio 6, that was radio 6. Radio 5 was Paul. Radio 7 was SWL7 on the E.F. Johnson Messenger 223. Radio 8, Chris on the Gem Marine Products G PowerMate. The General Radio Telephone Super MC9 was radio number 9. Thank you, Paul. Chris on the Chris 23 Plus for radio 10. Radio 11, Mr. Ed on the Browning Golden Eagle Mark III SSB, followed by the General Radio Telephone Super MC 11A from Chris. Larry on his Gemtronics GTX 5000 Radio 13 and Radio 14, the Gauntz G11, which should be going strong regardless of what's going on in the air. You do have to have power, so make sure you can run it off your 12-volt battery. Thanks to all those who tuned in tonight and are still listening. Hello, Fresno, Florida, Texas, still in there, Virginia, Georgia, Utah, Maryland. It is nice to be worldwide, and as we always say, we hope that you have some type of radio night where you might be, just to encourage people to get on the air and have a good time and put down the telephones and turn off the televisions and just chat and check up on everybody. The Old Tube Radio Network, thanks to SearchLawrence.com that keeps the Nixie tubes running and all the digital stuff, and thanks to you that keeps everything else going. We will be here next week. I will put up the link when I find it again to the Fresno Amateur Radio Club swap meet happening next Saturday morning for those looking for some more information. And hopefully we will all be here next week to check in on our Tube Radio 73, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
And good night on YouTube. We'll catch you next time.
Break out the Ovaltine.